Meghan Markle has debuted a new assistant, and not only that, the Duchess dictator has arrived.
You won't believe what just came to light. In a shocking twist of royal drama, Princess Anne allegedly smacked Meghan Markle across the face. Not with words, but with a contract tied to a donor egg. Secrets about Meghan's pregnancy are being exposed like never before, and the palace is reportedly in chaos. Lies, betrayal, and betrayal among the royals. This isn't just scandal, it's a storm no one saw coming. The story that has been making waves across social media and online forums sounds almost too dramatic to be real. Claims about secret agreements involving donor eggs, allegations questioning the legitimacy of royal pregnancies, and even talk of DNA testing being demanded by senior members of the royal family have created one of the most persistent controversies surrounding the modern monarchy. For those who believe these claims, this represents a long overdue moment of truth. For critics, it is nothing more than unfounded speculation that has spiraled out of control. The question that keeps coming up is simple. What is actually being alleged here, and why has this particular story gained so much traction? Over the past few years, few topics related to the British royal family have sparked as much ongoing discussion as the births of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's two children. What started as mild curiosity about the couple's decision to do things differently has gradually transformed into something much bigger. It has become a public debate touching on issues of transparency, the right to privacy, and the rules that determine who can and cannot be part of the line of succession. This first part of the story is not about drawing conclusions or validating allegations. Instead, it is about understanding how this debate started in the first place, why it refuses to go away, and what information is actually available to the public. When Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor arrived in May 2019, the announcement looked noticeably different from what people had come to expect. Traditionally, when a royal baby is born, a signed notice is placed on an easel outside Buckingham Palace. The document includes the time and place of birth and carries the signatures of the medical professionals who attended the delivery. It is a centuries-old custom that has been followed reliably for generations. In Archie's case, however, the palace issued a written statement but did not display the usual signed bulletin. According to Kensington Palace, this was a deliberate choice. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex wanted a more private experience, and the Queen had been informed and agreed to the arrangement ahead of time. Most major news outlets in Britain and the United States accepted this explanation without much fuss. It was framed as part of Harry and Meghan's broader push to modernise royal traditions and shield their young family from excessive public attention. Still, the absence of those familiar rituals did not sit well with everyone. In certain corners of the internet, people began to ask why the established procedures had been skipped and whether that choice carried any deeper significance. Some wondered if there were legal implications tied to the change in protocol. Constitutional experts who were interviewed by respected newspapers were quick to clarify that the method of announcing a birth has no bearing on a child's place in the succession. Under British law, legitimacy depends on parentage within a legal marriage, not on public ceremonies or signed documents. Despite these clarifications, the questions did not stop. They continued to circulate online, often without the context that had been provided by legal scholars. The debate gained fresh momentum in 2021 when Lilibet Diana Mountbatten Windsor was born in California. Unlike her older brother, who was born on British soil, Lilibet came into the world entirely outside the UK. There were no royal doctors present, and no official notice was posted in London when she was born. This was not entirely without precedent. Members of the royal family who live abroad have given birth outside the traditional system before. However, the fact that it happened again, and this time across the Atlantic, added another layer of complexity to an already confusing situation for many people. Buckingham Palace confirmed the birth after it occurred and extended congratulations, but the statement was brief and offered little in the way of detail. Around this time, the nature of the online speculation began to shift and expand. Commentators started raising questions about surrogacy, the use of donor eggs, and other forms of assisted reproductive technology. It is important to be absolutely clear about something here. There is no verified public evidence that Meghan Markle used a surrogate or a donor egg for either of her pregnancies. Meghan herself has publicly stated that she carried both children. Friends and representatives have described the rumours as invasive and completely false. Major news organizations in both the United Kingdom and the United States have consistently reported that there is no proof supporting claims of fabricated pregnancies or secret surrogacy arrangements. Despite all of that, the rumors persisted. There are several reasons why they did not simply fade away. One of them has to do with the broader moment we are living in. Trust in institutions, whether they are governments, media organizations, or even long-standing monarchies, has been shaken in recent years. High-profile scandals involving secrecy and dishonesty have made people more skeptical of official statements. At the same time, the way information spreads has fundamentally changed. Social media platforms are designed to reward content that provokes strong reactions. Speculation and dramatic narratives often perform better than careful, nuanced reporting. As a result, unverified claims can reach millions of people within hours, sometimes faster than corrections, or context can catch up. Royal coverage has not been immune to this dynamic. Experts who study the spread of misinformation have pointed out that stories involving famous families, hidden contracts, and alleged cover-ups are especially likely to go viral, even when the evidence supporting them is thin or non-existent. Another factor that helped keep the issue alive was the very public conflict between the Sussexes and the rest of the royal family. Interviews, documentaries, and Prince Harry's memoir brought an unprecedented level of detail about internal family tensions into the open. While these projects were primarily focused on emotional experiences and the treatment Harry and Meghan received from the media, some people began to scrutinize specific passages looking for inconsistencies. Medical professionals who were interviewed by newspapers and television programs commented on certain descriptions of childbirth that appeared in the memoir. They noted that some of the details did not seem to align with standard clinical practice. These comments were presented as general observations rather than accusations. But they were quickly seized upon online and treated as supposed proof of deception. It was in this environment that calls for DNA testing began to emerge. It is important to understand where these calls are coming from. They have not been issued by any official British authority. Instead, they have come from commentators, social media users, and a relatively small number of outspoken critics. Under UK law, DNA testing cannot be ordered without good reason, and children are protected by strict privacy regulations. Legal experts who have been quoted in the British press have repeatedly explained that there is no legal mechanism for forcing DNA tests on royal children unless there is an actual court case involving parental rights or inheritance disputes. No such cases currently exist. Nevertheless, the phrase DNA test has become a recurring part of the online conversation, often used more as a rhetorical tool than as a realistic legal possibility. Within this atmosphere of suspicion and counter-suspicion, attention has increasingly turned towards senior members of the royal family who are known for their commitment to tradition and protocol. Princess Anne, the king's sister, is often mentioned in commentary because of her reputation as someone who takes constitutional duty very seriously. She has not made any public statements about Archie or Lilibet's births. She has not confirmed any investigation or document review related to them. Yet her name appears frequently in speculative articles and videos, often as a symbol of institutional authority and internal accountability. This says more about how people perceive the situation than about any confirmed actions on her part. Mainstream reporting has tried to maintain a clear distinction between what can be verified and what is simply conjecture. Reputable outlets in Britain and the United States have emphasised that both children are legally recognised as the offspring of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. They are included in the line of succession as defined by law, and their births have been acknowledged by the monarchy. At the same time, these outlets have also reported on the persistence of the rumours themselves, analysing why they resonate with certain audiences and how they fit into wider debates about transparency and privilege. Public reaction has remained deeply divided. Opinion polls and comment sections reveal that some people fully accept the official statements and view the rumours as unfair harassment of a couple who have already faced intense scrutiny. Others argue that because the monarchy plays a constitutional role, it should operate with a higher level of openness than ordinary private citizens. This tension between the desire for privacy and the public interest is not new, but it has become sharper in the digital age where personal details are routinely demanded and analysed by millions. As things stand right now, there is no publicly confirmed donor egg contract. There is no officially ordered DNA test. There is no verified evidence that Meghan Markle misrepresented her pregnancies. What does exist is a complex story shaped by unusual breaks from tradition, a highly public family conflict, and an online environment that blurs the line between asking legitimate questions and making unfounded accusations. Understanding this context is essential before examining the more dramatic narratives that have emerged in recent months. This first part of the story is about recognizing how a combination of changed customs, intense media scrutiny, and widespread public mistrust created the conditions for a controversy that continues to attract attention on both sides of the Atlantic. As the initial questions about the births of Archie and Lilibet began to settle into the background of mainstream news coverage, something else started to happen. A parallel narrative began to take shape almost entirely outside the realm of traditional media. This second phase is best understood as the point where online speculation stopped being just scattered questions and evolved into something much more organized and self-sustaining. It became an entire ecosystem of claims, counterclaims, amateur investigations, and deeply held beliefs. While much of this activity has never been supported by verifiable evidence, the sheer scale and persistence of it have played a major role in keeping the controversy alive and visible. The rise of this rumor-driven narrative happened to coincide with a broader shift in how people get their information about the world. Increasingly, audiences are turning to social media platforms, video-sharing sites, and independent blogs for commentary on public figures. These spaces operate differently from traditional news organizations. They are less constrained by editorial standards and fact-checking processes. They often prioritize speed, emotional impact, and audience engagement over careful verification. Royal topics were already popular because they combined the appeal of tradition with the fascination of celebrity culture. This made them particularly fertile ground for speculative content that could attract views and shares. One of the earliest strands of this rumor network focused on Meghan Markle's public appearances during her pregnancies. Short video clips and photographs were shared over and over again, often slowed down or zoomed in to highlight moments that commentators described as unusual or suspicious. These included changes in posture, the shape of her abdomen under different outfits, or perceived inconsistencies between appearances that took place on different days. When medical professionals were asked about these claims by established newspapers, they generally responded that pregnancy can look very different from person to person and even from day to day. Factors like clothing choices, camera angles, body type, and the stage of pregnancy all play a role in how someone appears. Nonetheless, the clips kept circulating, often stripped of that medical context and presented as evidence of something hidden. Alongside this visual analysis, another line of speculation centered on assisted reproductive technology. Some online commentators argued that because Meghan was in her late 30s when Archie was born, the use of fertility treatments or donor eggs was statistically likely. Fertility specialists who were quoted in mainstream outlets pointed out that while the use of assisted reproduction does increase with maternal age, it remains a deeply private medical matter. More importantly, it cannot simply be inferred from age alone. Even if fertility treatment or a donor egg had been used, this would not in itself imply any kind of deception or wrongdoing. It also would not automatically affect a child's legal status within the family or the line of succession. These distinctions, however, were often lost in online discussions, where complex medical topics were reduced to provocative headlines and definitive-sounding statements. Claims about surrogacy followed a similar pattern. A small number of websites and video channels began asserting that unnamed sources or alleged former clinic employees had information about a surrogate arrangement. These stories rarely included verifiable documents, identifiable witnesses, or corroboration from independent investigators. When journalists from recognized outlets took the time to examine these claims more closely, they noted that the stories often recycled the same assertions across multiple platforms. This created the impression of widespread confirmation when, in reality, many of them could be traced back to a single, unverified source that had simply been repeated again and again. The decision by the Sussexes to step back from royal duties and later to criticize the monarchy in interviews and documentaries further intensified interest in these rumors. For critics of Harry and Meghan, the idea of hidden truths about the pregnancies became part of a broader narrative that portrayed the couple as dishonest or manipulative. For supporters, the rumors were seen as yet another example of unfair targeting and harassment, particularly of Meghan as a biracial woman in a highly visible and historically white institution. This polarization meant that new information, or even just speculation, was often interpreted through an existing emotional lens rather than being assessed on its own merits. People on both sides were already convinced of what they believed, and they tended to see everything that followed as confirmation of those beliefs. Traditional media did report on the existence of these rumors, but usually in the context of debunking them or explaining why they lacked evidence. British newspapers quoted legal and constitutional experts who reiterated that the monarchy does not have the authority to retroactively investigate births based on public speculation alone. American outlets focused more on the personal toll of constant scrutiny, citing mental health advocates who warned about the impact of conspiracy theories on families and children. Even so, coverage that acknowledged the rumors, even when it was intended to correct them, sometimes had the unintended effect of introducing them to wider audiences who had not been aware of them before. Another element that sustained this rumor machine was the language of secrecy. References to sealed records, hidden contracts, or suppressed documents appeared frequently, despite the absence of any proof that such materials actually existed. Researchers who study conspiracy theories have noted that claims of hidden evidence are particularly powerful because they are very difficult to disprove. The lack of evidence gets framed as confirmation of a cover-up rather than as a reason for skepticism. In the case of the Sussex children, official silence or brief statements were often interpreted by critics as evasive behaviour, while supporters saw the same silence as a reasonable attempt to protect privacy and avoid giving attention to baseless accusations. Discussions about DNA testing became a focal point during this phase. Some commentators argued that a simple test could end the debate once and for all, providing definitive proof one way or another. Others pointed out that demanding DNA evidence from children who are not involved in any legal dispute raises serious ethical and legal concerns. In the United Kingdom, data protection laws and children's rights legislation place strict limits on the collection and disclosure of genetic information. Legal analysts interviewed by newspapers explained that even in inheritance cases, courts are extremely cautious about ordering DNA tests, especially when alternative evidence of parentage already exists. These explanations, while widely available in TED, reputable publications struggled to compete with the emotional appeal of a supposed definitive test that could settle everything. The role of algorithms in spreading these rumors also cannot be ignored. Social media platforms are designed to recommend content that is similar to what users have already engaged with. Someone who watches one video questioning a royal pregnancy may quickly find themselves being shown dozens more, each one reinforcing the same suspicions and doubts. Over time, this creates an impression of overwhelming consensus within a person's curated feed, even if those views remain marginal in the broader population. Several digital media researchers have cited royal conspiracy content as a clear example of this feedback loop in action. The more you engage with it, the more it surrounds you, and the harder it becomes to encounter alternative perspectives or corrective information. Public figures and commentators occasionally stepped into the debate, sometimes unintentionally fueling it further. When a television personality or newspaper columnist mentioned the rumors, even to criticize or dismiss them, clips of those mentions were shared without the full context. Headlines were rewritten to sound more suggestive, and cautious language was replaced with definitive statements. This process blurred the line between reporting on the existence of rumors and actively promoting them. A statement intended to debunk a claim could be chopped up and circulated in a way that made it seem like the claim was being taken seriously by mainstream figures. Throughout this period, official responses from Buckingham Palace remained limited and measured. Statements, when they were issued, tended to reaffirm that both children were born to Harry and Meghan, and that speculation about their births was unfounded. No detailed rebuttals were provided, which is consistent with the royal family's long-standing approach of avoiding engagement with unsubstantiated claims. Media analysts have observed that while this strategy can prevent escalation in some cases, it can also leave a vacuum that rumors rush to fill. When official sources stay silent, people often interpret that silence in whatever way fits their existing beliefs. By the time this second phase reached its peak, the debate had largely detached itself from concrete events or verifiable facts. It was sustained instead by repetition, reinterpretation, and a constant search for new angles or supposed evidence. Each new interview, photograph, or public appearance was treated as potential confirmation, regardless of how tenuous the actual connection might be. A smile, a gesture, a choice of clothing, or even the absence of a public appearance could all be analysed and debated endlessly. For many observers, this marked the point where the controversy shifted from being a discussion about protocol and transparency to becoming a case study in how modern misinformation spreads and takes on a life of its own. Understanding this rumour-driven phase is essential because it sets the stage for the later claims of dramatic revelations or decisive interventions that would follow. Without recognizing how speculation was amplified and normalized through repetition and algorithmic reinforcement, it becomes very difficult to assess subsequent narratives critically. This second part of the story is less about what can be proven and more about how a story, once rooted in relatively minor departures from tradition, grew into a complex and emotionally charged web of allegations that continues to influence public perception today. It demonstrates how quickly questions can turn into accusations and how difficult it is to put that process into reverse once it has gained momentum. As online speculation continued to circulate and intensify, the focus of public discussion gradually began to shift in a new direction. People were no longer just debating what might or might not be true about the births themselves. Instead, attention turned to a different question: whether the royal institution itself might feel compelled to respond in some formal way. This stage of the narrative is defined less by confirmed actions and more by heightened attention on how the monarchy traditionally handles sensitive issues related to legitimacy, succession, and public trust. It is also the point at which certain senior royals, particularly those associated in the public mind with duty and constitutional discipline, began to feature prominently in analysis and commentary, even though they themselves remained completely silent. Among those figures, Princess Anne became a frequent point of reference. Her reputation has been shaped over decades by a consistent public image. She is widely seen as pragmatic, direct, and focused on service rather than popularity or public approval. British media have often described her as someone who takes the mechanics and responsibilities of the monarchy very seriously and who avoids unnecessary drama or attention. There is no public record of Princess Anne commenting on Meghan Markle's pregnancies, surrogacy rumours, donor egg claims, or calls for DNA testing. No interview, speech, or official statement supports the idea that she has personally revealed documents or demanded proof of any kind. Nonetheless, her name began appearing regularly in speculative articles, videos, and opinion pieces largely because she represents, in the public imagination, the institutional conscience of the royal family. She is seen as someone who would care deeply about these matters, even if there is no evidence that she has taken any specific action. This phenomenon highlights a wider misunderstanding about how authority actually operates within the monarchy. Constitutional scholars and royal historians writing in established British publications have repeatedly explained that no individual royal, regardless of how senior they are, has unilateral power over matters such as succession verification or access to private medical information. Decisions that touch on constitutional issues are handled through formal legal advice and, where relevant, consultation with government bodies. Even the monarch does not act alone in such matters. The popular idea that a single royal figure could privately order investigations, access medical contracts, or demand DNA tests reflects a common but inaccurate perception of how royal power works in practice. The modern monarchy operates within a framework of laws and procedures, not through the personal authority of individual family members. At the same time, the concept of institutional transparency gained renewed attention. Commentators debated whether the monarchy's unique constitutional role created an obligation to provide more detailed information than would be expected of an ordinary family. Supporters of this view argued that because succession affects the state and the government, clarity should override personal privacy. Opposing voices pointed out that modern Britain operates under strict privacy and data protection laws that apply equally to royal and non-royal children. Legal experts quoted in the British press have consistently stressed that the rights of minors are particularly protected, and that disclosing or verifying details of conception or birth without a compelling legal reason would be both unethical and unlawful. These protections exist precisely to shield children from intrusive demands, regardless of who their parents are. Despite these legal realities, the narrative of internal concern continued to evolve and expand. Articles and online discussions increasingly suggested that senior figures were uncomfortable, asking questions, or seeking clarity behind closed doors. These phrases were often vague and unsupported by named sources, making them difficult to verify or interpret with any confidence. When journalists from mainstream outlets examined such claims, they typically described them as speculative, noting that discomfort or curiosity, even if it genuinely existed, would not automatically translate into action. Still, the repetition of these ideas contributed to a sense among some audiences that something significant was happening out of public view, even if there was no concrete evidence to support that belief. The issue of DNA testing became particularly central during this period. In online discourse, the phrase DNA test ordered began to appear with increasing frequency, often presented as an inevitable next step rather than as a hypothetical scenario. In reality, legal specialists have been very clear that there is no mechanism for the palace to order DNA tests of royal children. Under United Kingdom law, genetic testing requires consent from those with parental responsibility or a court order issued in the context of a specific legal dispute. No such dispute has been reported regarding Archie or Lilibet. Family law experts, interviewed by newspapers, described the idea of palace-initiated DNA testing as fundamentally incompatible with both domestic law and international human rights standards. The law treats children as individuals with rights, not as subjects whose genetic information can be demanded by institutions or distant relatives. Nevertheless, the appeal of DNA testing as a supposed final answer proved hard to resist for many people following the story. For some members of the public, it represented a clear, scientific solution to ongoing uncertainty. For others, it became a symbol of what they saw as a legitimate entitlement to personal information about public figures. Media commentators noted that this desire for definitive proof often overlooked the fact that scientific clarity does not automatically resolve social or political disputes. Even if such tests were somehow possible, their results would raise further questions about privacy, precedent, and the appropriate treatment of children born into high-profile families. During this phase, much of the discussion took place in the form of analysis rather than straightforward reporting. Television panels, podcasts, and opinion columns explored hypothetical outcomes, asking how the monarchy would respond if certain claims were true or how succession law might apply in extreme scenarios. These conversations were often framed as intellectual exercises or thought experiments, but excerpts were frequently circulated online without that context. As a result, viewers encountering isolated clips could easily mistake speculation for insider knowledge or imminent developments. What was intended as a theoretical discussion could sound like a prediction or even a revelation. The monarchy's communication strategy played a significant role in shaping perceptions at this stage. Buckingham Palace continued to limit its responses to brief confirmations of existing positions, such as acknowledging the births and reaffirming the children's status within the family. No detailed rebuttals of specific rumours were issued. Royal correspondents have noted that this approach aligns with long-standing practice. The reasoning is straightforward. Engaging directly with unfounded claims risks granting them legitimacy and encouraging more of the same. However, in the current media environment, this restraint has sometimes been interpreted as evasiveness rather than as dignity or institutional discipline. American media coverage added another layer of complexity to the situation. In the United States, reporting on the royal family often places greater emphasis on personal experience, emotional narratives, and social context. Many American commentators focused on the impact of persistent rumors on Meghan Markle specifically, linking them to broader discussions about gender, race, and media hostility toward women in the public eye. Mental health advocates interviewed by American outlets warned about the psychological effects of conspiracy theories, particularly when children are involved and when the theories attack the legitimacy of their very existence. At the same time, a parallel ecosystem of online content in the United States embraced more sensational interpretations, framing the story as an example of elite secrecy or institutional hypocrisy. The American conversation, in other words, was split in much the same way as the British one, but with different cultural and political undertones. Throughout this period, claims about specific documents continued to surface. References were made to donor egg contracts, surrogacy agreements, and other supposed paperwork that would prove the allegations once and for all. None of these documents have been independently authenticated or confirmed by reputable journalists. In several instances, the same alleged document was described differently across various platforms, with inconsistent dates, locations, or signatures. Fact-checking organizations that reviewed viral claims concluded that they lacked credible sourcing and often relied on circular reporting, where one unverified article was cited as evidence by another, creating an illusion of corroboration where none actually existed. The persistence of these claims illustrates a key dynamic of modern misinformation. Once an idea gains traction, it can be sustained by repetition alone, even in the complete absence of new evidence. Each restatement reinforces familiarity, which some audiences interpret as credibility. The more often something is said, the more real it begins to feel, even if nothing has actually changed. Researchers studying misinformation have identified royal conspiracy theories as a clear example of this effect, noting how they draw on existing skepticism toward elites and institutions and turn that skepticism into something that feels like knowledge. Another recurring theme during this phase was the interpretation of silence as strategy. Commentators speculated that the palace was deliberately allowing rumors to circulate in order to avoid confrontation or to protect the monarchy from appearing heavy-handed or defensive. Others argued that silence was simply the result of legal advice and a genuine desire to avoid escalating a situation that involved children. Communications experts have pointed out that silence can serve multiple purposes simultaneously, but its meaning is often projected by observers rather than explicitly defined by the institution itself. People tend to fill in the blanks with whatever explanation fits their existing beliefs. Public opinion remained deeply divided throughout this period. Comment sections, opinion polls, and social media discussions revealed two broad camps. One viewed the rumors as baseless and harmful, driven by hostility toward Meghan Markle and a broader mistrust of change within the monarchy. The other believed that unanswered questions justified continued scrutiny, particularly given the constitutional significance of the line of succession. This division meant that new information, even when it was neutral or corrective in nature, was often interpreted through pre-existing beliefs rather than being assessed objectively. Historians and constitutional commentators attempted to provide a longer-term perspective on the situation. Writing in British newspapers, some noted that the monarchy has faced questions about legitimacy and succession many times throughout its long history. These issues have often been resolved quietly through legal mechanisms, rather than through public spectacle or dramatic revelations. They cautioned against assuming that modern controversies would necessarily lead to explosive outcomes. At the same time, they acknowledged that the digital age has fundamentally altered expectations of transparency and access to information in ways that previous generations never experienced. By the close of this stage, the narrative had reached a point of heightened expectation without any corresponding evidence to support it. Senior royals such as Princess Anne continued to be invoked symbolically, but without any confirmed actions to back up the dramatic claims associated with their names. The debate was no longer driven primarily by events or facts, but by anticipation itself. There was a widespread belief that a decisive moment, revelation, or institutional response was inevitable and just around the corner. Understanding this phase is essential because it demonstrates how speculation can shift from questioning facts to expecting authority to intervene. The absence of clear resolutions created space for increasingly confident assertions about what would happen next, setting the stage for narratives that would claim breakthroughs, exposures, or final judgments, whether those narratives were substantiated or not. The final phase of this story is shaped not by confirmation of the dramatic claims that had circulated online, but by the way public reaction, legal and realities and institutional restraint ultimately defined the outcome. Rather than a single explosive revelation, this period has been characterized by a gradual cooling of momentum, a clearer separation between verifiable facts and speculation, and a growing awareness of the limits that law and custom place on what the monarchy can or will do. As rumors about donor eggs, surrogacy contracts, and DNA testing reached their peak, many observers expected a decisive response. Online commentary frequently predicted a moment when documents would be released or legal actions taken that would settle the debate. In practice, none of these expectations materialized. No authenticated contracts were published by reputable news organizations. No court proceedings were initiated. No official body announced the ordering of DNA tests. Instead, the royal household maintained its position of minimal engagement, reaffirming previously stated facts without addressing speculative details. This approach reflects a long-standing institutional strategy. Royal communications have traditionally prioritized stability over reactive disclosure. Senior aides speaking anonymously to British journalists have explained that responding directly to unproven allegations can legitimize them and encourage further speculation. In matters involving children, this caution is amplified. The monarchy has repeatedly emphasized that despite its public role, it remains bound by the same legal frameworks governing privacy and child welfare as any other family. From a legal perspective, the situation has remained unchanged. Both Archie and Lilibet are legally recognized as the children of Prince Harry and Meghan, Duchess of Sussex. Their births were announced by the palace, and their names appear in the official line of succession. Legal scholars writing in the British press have pointed out that this status cannot be altered by public opinion or online campaigns. Any challenge would require formal legal proceedings supported by credible evidence, something that has not occurred. The threshold for revisiting matters of parentage is extremely high under British law, particularly when no competing inheritance claims exist. Public discourse during this phase began to show signs of fatigue. While some online communities continued to analyze photographs and statements, broader audiences appeared less engaged. Media monitoring organizations noted a decline in mainstream coverage of surrogacy and DNA rumors, replaced by general reporting on the Sussexes' professional ventures and the royal family's official activities. This shift suggests that outside dedicated online spaces, the appetite for speculative narratives may have reached its limit. There was also increased scrutiny of the rumor culture itself. Journalists began examining how and why certain claims had gained traction. Articles in British and American outlets analyzed the role of social media algorithms, influencer economics, and confirmation bias in amplifying unverified stories. Some commentators acknowledged that earlier coverage, even when intended to debunk rumors, may have inadvertently contributed to their spread by repeating provocative language. The personal impact of sustained speculation also became more prominent. Mental health professionals quoted in the press highlighted the potential harm of conspiracy theories targeting families and children. They warned that persistent questioning of a child's legitimacy can have long-term psychological effects, regardless of whether claims have any basis in truth. These perspectives resonated with people who began to express discomfort with the direction the story had taken. Princess Anne, whose name had been frequently invoked during earlier phases, remained publicly silent throughout this period. Her continued absence from the debate served as a reminder that much of the narrative built around her supposed role had been entirely speculative. Royal historians pointed out that senior royals often exercise influence quietly through private counsel rather than public intervention. Without evidence of specific statements or actions, assumptions about her involvement remained exactly that, assumptions. From a constitutional standpoint, experts reiterated that the monarchy's legitimacy does not hinge on addressing every rumour. The British system relies on law, precedent, and parliamentary sovereignty, not on public debate over private matters. Succession rules are clearly defined, and there is no provision for informal challenges based on speculation. Calls for dramatic revelations or mandatory tests were increasingly recognised as incompatible with how the system operates. By the end of this phase, a clearer picture had emerged. Despite years of intense scrutiny, no verified evidence had surfaced to support claims of donor egg contracts, secret surrogacy arrangements, or palace-ordered DNA tests. The children's legal status remained unchanged. For some observers, this was frustrating. For others, it demonstrated that legal protections can shield private individuals from intrusive demands. The lasting impact may lie in what it reveals about contemporary culture. The speed at which speculation spreads, the difficulty of correcting misinformation, and the emotional investment audiences place in narratives about public figures all played crucial roles. The story illustrates how easily questions about protocol can evolve into allegations of deception, and how challenging it becomes to restore balance once a narrative becomes polarized. As interest has waned in mainstream spaces, journalists have become more explicit about distinguishing between confirmed facts and online claims. The broader public conversation has largely moved on. In this sense, the final phase is defined by restraint rather than revelation. The absence of dramatic confirmation has itself become the conclusion. The monarchy did not issue sweeping statements, the courts did not intervene. Instead, existing legal recognition stood firm, and the institution relied on its established framework to weather the storm without reactive responses.